Traffic has never been this hot. Here we go! Sit back and trip. This is the Traffic Jam with Yams. Cut it.
Welcome to Play to Win, where we bring you 360 degrees of esports coaching. This show will bring you professional esports players, team executives, league owners, celebrities, anybody and everybody that are contributing to the explosive growth of that billion-dollar industry called esports. My name is Charles Gentry, aka The Oracle, and you have tuned in to Play to Win. Okay, we are coming back from Mr. DJ Yams, bringing us those great sounds as usual. I have a fantastic guest opening up today, Mr. Matthew Benson of eFuse, and he's going to tell us all about the great things that they're doing over there. And we're going to talk about esports as usual and the business and culture of esports. So without further ado, Mr. Matthew Benson. How are you, Matthew?
I'm doing fantastic. It's great to be here, excited to be here, and looking forward to the conversation.
All right. Well, I've been looking forward to the interview for quite a while, you know, wanting to find out what's happening over there at eFuse, what you guys are up to. I know you're doing something great there in the wonderful state of Ohio. Okay. So tell us what eFuse is about.
Yeah, so eFuse at a high level is a platform that aims to connect gamers to one another and ultimately help connect them to opportunities. So our thesis is we want to help you no matter who you are, where you come from, or what your skill set is. If you're passionate about gaming, you should have an opportunity to take that passion and turn it to profession. So that's really what eFuse is all about. Whether you're the kid coming out of high school and want to go play collegiate esports, or all the way up to the pro, or you're like me and you're no damn good at video games, but you want to be involved, it could be helping you get a job. So we're sort of at a really high level, a platform that connects gamers to each other and to opportunities.
Okay. And that's what it sounds like. It sounds like a platform for opportunities. You know, how did you get into doing eFuse, you know, creating it, and then tell us a little bit about how you're evolving from the original idea of it.
Yeah, absolutely. So quick background on me. I'm born and raised here in Ohio, grew up an hour south from Columbus in a small town called Chillicothe. Our claim to fame is we were the first capital of Ohio, but not a whole lot there, a really rural town. Ultimately, went on to study at Ohio University in Athens, Ohio, studied entrepreneurship and finance there, and then ultimately made my way to Columbus, where I worked at a venture capital firm that was investing in early stage tech companies. And then in August of 2018, jumped ship to found eFuse, which again, at a really high level is a LinkedIn for gamers in a lot of ways. But how did I kind of come into the idea? How did we formulate the process in the company? It really started when I was younger, right? I grew up playing games all the time, primarily playing casually with friends. We would get home from football, basketball, soccer, get home at 3 and we'd be on till 11 at night, right? That was my childhood. Played a lot of different games, ranging from sports titles like FIFA, 2K, Madden, and ultimately got into first-person shooters like the Call of Duties and even into games like Fortnite and Rocket League. So I've had a wide range of casual experience, loved it, and sort of attributed gaming as a hobby. Going into college, I had an opportunity to actually conduct research on the industry of esports and gaming. So I spent an entire semester developing, along with the team, a 180-page report on all things esports and gaming. So I learned a lot, probably more than I wanted to know at the time. That was a lot of papers to write back in the day, but really, really enjoyed that. And it was a great opportunity for me to really understand what the industry looked like, but even further than that, what did it look like in 5, 10, 15 years? So it was this blending of passion and hobby paired with this newfound knowledge on the business of gaming that ultimately led me and my co-founder Austin May to jump ship and found eFuse. And that the problem we saw at the time was really just fragmentation. And because of that fragmentation in the industry between organizations, individuals, brands, you name it, right? Because of that fragmentation, there was an inability for opportunities or really talent to find opportunities. At the time, the niche we focused on was collegiate esports. That was the one that seemed to be the biggest opportunity for us at the time. In reality, I think it's a little slower than we initially anticipated, but we wanted to help high school kids get out of high school, go to college, but ultimately be recruited for collegiate esports scholarships. So as more and more universities are starting up these programs, they want to recruit talent in, right? So how do you do that in gaming? It's very easy to do that in traditional sports, right? You've got how fast do they run a 40, how many points per game do they score, but what do those metrics look like to be recruited at this level? So that was the initial niche that we focused on and ultimately built up to. As we evolved, we went on to raise some money in over the course of 2019, went on to raise a little north of $2 million, built out a team. And from that, we've now evolved into really where this marketplace of opportunity, ranging from everything from scholarships to jobs, to tournaments, to team openings, to giveaways, to sponsorship deals. It's really all of the above. But in the beginning, it was very much so focused on how do we get somebody from high school to college, and then it's slowly expanded as our team has expanded.
Okay. It sounds like you're right on the cutting edge of esports there. You know, we have, as you pointed out, quite a fragmentation when it comes to esports. You know, I mean, it's all over the place.
Yeah.
But it sounds like you have a platform that people can really use to kind of zero in on where they want to get to inside of esports. So as you evolve, did that become more your goal, plugging people into the different spots in esports?
Absolutely. And I think for me, it was, and my co-founder too, when we graduated from university, if we wanted to work in the gaming industry, there was we didn't know how did we get involved? So ultimately the goal for eFuse is, no matter who you are, again, where you come from or what you want to do in the industry, there is a place for you. So it is taking passion and turning it into a profession. So eFuse over time has developed more and more of those opportunities and sort of aggregated them in one place and enabled individuals to come and say, hey, this is the pipeline, if you will, of how I get a job in gaming. This is the pipeline of how I get a scholarship in gaming. In many ways, we're trying to help formulate what that pipeline looks like, because this growth is really so new. There's so many processes that need to be developed in order for these opportunities to be fulfilled. And that's where eFuse really fits in.
I would imagine that it is pretty exciting, being that esports is, you know, having explosive growth right now, that it's new. It's kind of like the gold rush out there, you know? So how do you see you guys a year down the line, 3 years, 5 years down the line, really affecting the growth of esports and kind of shaping how that's happening?
Yeah, I mean, we look at ourselves broadly as an ecosystem, right? I mean, we want to bring all parties of the industry together. We want to bring the publishers, the team owners, the players, the casual fans all into one ecosystem and allow them to collaborate professionally and access these opportunities, right? So as the industry grows, more opportunities grow and more people fall in love with gaming too. So we envision eFuse growing in respect on both sides of that marketplace, more people wanting to be involved and more opportunities being available. So as that grows, so will eFuse and helping to facilitate that. But more broadly too, we really have a strong push in trying to clash cultures, if you will. One thing that I've realized along this journey is there are a lot of gamers out there, and that's really anybody in between, right? So professional athletes is a great example. They're playing in the NBA, they're playing in the NFL during the day, but what are they doing? They come home at night. A lot of them are playing video games. So one thing we've taken a lot of pride in is helping individuals like that get further involved into the ecosystem, but in tangent with that, bringing in non-endemic brands, bringing in the leagues and saying, hey, this is what esports really is. You can be a contributing member to that, and you will ultimately help this industry grow. And by doing that and bringing in more people, bringing in more money, bringing in more talent, we view it as a way to give back to the community and grow the community more broadly. But selfishly, as the community grows, so do we. So that's one really interesting piece that we've focused on in the last couple of months. But again, more broadly, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 years, community grows, we're going to grow, and we want to continue to provide them the tools to access opportunity and to give those opportunities out.
You are listening to and viewing Play to Win. I'm your host, Charles Gentry, AKA The Oracle, and we're talking to Matthew Benson of eFuse. Matthew, how does your background in finance blend in with what you're doing now? Was it a real help coming from that area into what you're doing now with esports?
Yeah, it's a great question. It definitely was. So backing up just a little bit, worked at the Ohio Innovation Fund, which is that venture capital firm here in Columbus. That fund was about $40 million, founded in 2016, and the goal was to invest in seed and Series A stage companies, so really young companies, and help them grow through the process and grow through the pains. Being in the Midwest, there's not a lot of experiences like that here. It's beginning to ramp up, but I was very grateful and fortunate to have the opportunity to go work for them. And what I learned from that was really two things. First is what are venture capitalists and investors more broadly thinking about when you come to the table? What's important to them? How do they think about investing in your business? But on the flip side, I also got to work hand in hand with a lot of great operators and entrepreneurs. So I got to see both sides of the equation and understand it at a really high level. So before I needed to go out and raise money for our business, which inevitably that's what it was going to take, I had a really good foundational experience of this is what this ecosystem looks like. This is how it works. So when I did decide to jump ship in August 2018 and started fundraising in March of 2019, it was I wouldn't say easy. Fundraising is never easy, but it was easier to understand and to build a process that ultimately would get us funded and would allow us to grow the business. So it's been an absolute help. And then growing the business from there, how do you utilize those funds? How do you bring on a team? Again, those are all things I got a taste of while at OIF that I've been able to use to not only extend the growth of eFuse, but bring on really tremendous people to join us.
Well, I'm going to ask you the question that I'm sure a lot of our viewers have in their heads out there. You know, how do you jump ship on a great job to take a shot at something that, you know, you're just kind of pulling out of the air? You know, how do you summon the courage to do that, if you would call it courage?
Yeah, no, I definitely believe it was a courageous leap of faith for sure. But I think for me, it was growing up, I always wanted to do my own thing. I did love my work at the Ohio Innovation Fund, and I learned a lot. And eventually, I think I want to return to investing, hopefully, if I make enough money to be an angel investor to do X, Y, and Z, right? But for me, it was, why not now? Why not take the risk? Worst comes to worst, right? I know that I'm going to have really great skill sets that come out of this, that I'll be able to go and get another job. But more broadly than that, I really believed in the mission of what we're trying to build and believed in the team that we've assembled to go and build that. So yes, it was a leap of faith, but I looked at it as an opportunity to bet on myself. And when you do that, I have a strong belief that you put yourself in a better position to win. And one of my favorite quotes is, vulnerability is a breeding ground for growth. So when you put yourself in vulnerable situations, you're either going to grow to be better or you're not, right? But you can only do that if you're in a vulnerable situation. And that's what it looked like and felt like to me. And so far it's paid off.
Okay, fantastic. Those people out there who may want to do the same thing, they're saying, you know, hey, I think I can do something in esports. I'd like to find a career in there. If somebody has that mindset, you know, how do they use eFuse to kind of get into the pipeline and get something going?
Yeah, so I think it's just twofold there, right? So if you want to work in the industry, if you want to just be involved in the industry more broadly, use eFuse as a platform to network, use it as an opportunity to access really elite jobs in the industry. We have some great businesses, organizations, publishers, teams even that are recruiting using eFuse. So if you want to get a hold of them, if you want to network with the highest level, be on eFuse, be investing into the community, and I guess be putting in the work to make that a reality. On the flip side of the spectrum, if you want to start your own business, and this is, I guess, specific to gaming, you can use eFuse as a resource to not only build your network, but build your mentor community and just learn more broadly about what the industry has. One of the things we have on the platform is what we call the learning portal. And essentially this is an aggregate. Erin Ashley Simon does a great job for us. She has been going around the industry and interviewing industry leaders in a lot of ways. So you have individuals like a Sundance D Giovanni or a Mike Sepso or whomever, right, coming in and having a conversation about what their journey looked like in gaming when they jumped ship to co-found MLG. That was a huge risk. It ended up paying off for them. They worked their butts off and they made it happen. But what was that journey like? There's a lot of pieces along the way. What Erin does a really great job of in this series is pulling out those tidbits so you can learn about the industry and learn about their success and their failures to be better yourself. So use the learning portal and eFuse more broadly as a way to build up your skill set, build up your knowledge base. So when the time comes to jump ship and found your own thing, you've got the relationships, you've got the knowledge to go and execute.
Esports, of course, there are a lot of young people out there. And when we're talking about getting out there and doing things, experience does count. So what are some of the things that you can tell those who are young, they have the passion, but maybe not the experience, to jump off and do something? What is kind of some of the pointers you can give people who really want to get involved in esports at a young age?
Yeah, I think it's be a part of the community, right? So even if you're not actively working in the industry, it doesn't mean you can't be an active part of the conversation. There's great conversations happening on eFuse, places like LinkedIn, where you can go and you can learn about the industry and you can begin to build a network of individuals that love it, right? And it's ultimately that network that will enable you to make a leap of faith when the time comes. But further than that, I would advise, and it's sometimes hard to hear, but offer to do work for free or provide value for free in a lot of ways. Giving of your time and saying, hey, I'm not asking you. So for example, if somebody was to come to me and say, hey, Matt, I want to give you 10 hours a week just as a resource. I'm a graphic designer. I love what you guys are doing at eFuse. I don't have a whole lot of experience, but I want to provide value to you. If they did that, I am 20 times more likely to say, hey, when the time comes for that position to come on, and I know that they're putting out great work and they're doing a great job, then I'm going to bring them on over any other candidate, right? So it's hard to do. It's hard to give your time, and not everybody has it, but I would encourage you, if you have the time, the resources, the skill set to give of yourself and provide value first, it's always a great opportunity for you to go and get a great lead in with an industry leader and say, hey, here's what I can do for you. I'm not asking of anything, but I promise you that industry leader will come back and say a month later, a year later, whatever it is, that is what ultimately drove me to bring them into my circle, bring them into the opportunity. So those are a couple ways in which I think you can get involved.
All great leaders have that one story, about going through their little wilderness or valley experience. Nobody just jumps in a business and it takes off and goes to the moon in a day, so kind of, what were kind of the tough times for you in starting eFuse, and how'd you get through that?
Yeah, it's a great question. And I don't think the startup journey more broadly is just not a linear path, right? It's peaks and valleys, and you've got to learn to ride the wave. But I think what's been really helpful for me is kind of repositioning my mindset into daily tasks, right? What am I going to do today to make this a strong business? And the phrase I use often internally with our team is, how are we going to stack a win today? And it's that stack. You can't win the war in one battle. You can win the war over the course of a series of battles, right? And that's the mindset that it takes in a startup. There's going to be days where you're at the lowest of lows. It feels like the world is on your back. But there's also going to be days where you're at the highest of highs and you feel like you've conquered the world. It's about finding that middle ground, riding the wave, riding the peaks and the valleys, and stacking wins every single day that will take you to that next level. eFuse has surely had that, right? From fundraising stories of, I can't get anybody to invest, to, oh, we got some great investors. Oh, I can't find any more. There's the fundraising stories. There's stories around product breaks. I mean, we've had where features don't work before, and we've had to revert and figure that out. Early on, we had really great user growth. We sort of plateaued for a bit, and now we're back on the skyrocketing trajectory. But it's about weathering those storms, figuring it out, because inevitably there's going to be adversity. I can promise you that. So you just got to figure out how to deal with that.
Well, you are in Ohio out there. You know, it's not California, it's not New York, you know, so people think in starting businesses, hey, I'm going to run out to Silicon Valley, you know, and get something going. How do you there in the Midwest draw that top talent to what you're doing?
Yeah, I think it works for us and against us. One, in the fact that there's not many companies like us here in the Midwest, and some talent are going to flock to the coast, right? Because they want to be out there. There's high paying jobs. You can go work at a Facebook, and you can make really good money there. You're going to be paying a lot more to live out there, but you can make a lot of money. Or you can choose to raise a family here, which there's a lot to be said for that. Cost of living is much lower. I would argue the talent is just as high. And in doing that, you're going to get a bigger piece of the pie to come and build a great company. So everybody in our organization has a piece of the pie. They have the upside, which I think is a really important thing. But being in the Midwest, again, you're going to have people that are on the coast that you're not going to be able to pull back. But the people that really want to be here, that want to build something special, they'll take the leap of faith. They'll join you if the mission's strong enough. And it works for us in the sense that we're doing some really cool things that aren't common to this area. Businesses like ours normally do flock to the Valley or to Boston or to New York, right? But we said, and it's I guess the Midwestern grit or Midwestern pride that just says, hey, we're going to build it here and we'll figure it out along the way. There may be additional hurdles to that, but I believe that there's better benefits to that as well for doing that and staking the flag here. So we've been super fortunate to get great people. It's all about them buying into the mission and then having the feeling of upside that if they bust their butt, they're going to be rewarded for that.
Now, what's kind of the entrepreneurial mix in esports, and especially for you that you've built? You know, you have to be part salesman, you have to be part marketer, you know, you have to be production guy. You know, what's kind of the mix that you found that worked for you with eFuse?
Yeah, I think one of the most underrated skills is self-awareness. Every single person in this planet is different from the person standing next to them. But what it requires, especially when you're building a business, is you've got to say, hey, this is where I'm not great. I cannot code at all. I could never be an engineer, right? That's just not how my brain functions. I have a vision for where the product should go, but how do we actually build that? You're talking to the wrong guy. So going and finding people that can complement my weaknesses and amplify my strengths is extremely important. More broadly, when I think about startups, I think, especially in the stage that we're at, which is pretty early stage, right? A seed stage, Series A-ish company. We're young, right? But what does that look like? What does a skill set when you come in and join our team really look like? First is the ability to deal with ambiguity. There's a lot of unknown. We're building something from the ground up. It's not like you're going to work for a nationwide insurance that's been around for 30 plus years. They have processes in place. You can work the 9 to 5 and go home and do your thing. That's great if you want that, but that's not what eFuse is. That's not what a startup is. You've got to come in, you've got to deal with the storm and learn to dance in the rain in many ways and say, hey, this is the path we're going. We don't know the answer quite yet, but we're going to figure it out. Dealing with ambiguity is number one. Effort, and it seems pretty basic, right? But our chief strategy officer, Patrick Klein, often says you can't coach every play. And he comes from college basketball. So what he means by that is if you've got to coach a player to play hard every single play, you're in trouble. You can coach the X's and O's, but you got to coach effort and you got to coach that every single play. That's not good for you or me. It's just not going to work out. So having effort when you come in is really important, because if I've got to coach that, we've already got a problem. Doesn't mean you're going to be motivated every day, but it means you're going to get out of bed, you're going to show up, and you're going to put your best foot forward. That's what we expect. So dealing with ambiguity, effort, and then I think more broadly than that, it's somebody that has a we mindset that's going to go to war and really kind of lock arms and say, hey, with everybody in the room and say, hey, we're going to do this thing. We don't know what it looks like quite yet, but it's not going to be about me. It's going to be about we, and we're going to figure out how we're going to do that. So those three attributes in this early stage are things that we really value. You notice I don't say a lot about the actual talent, the skill set. Like those are secondary things to me. I want people that I know are going to come in, put the effort forward. They're going to be problem solvers. They're going to be for the team. And then we can either teach them the skills, or hopefully that if they're the best case scenario, they've already got them and they can come in and they've already got those attributes as well. But it's a non-starter if you don't have those first three things at the stage we're at.
All right. You know, we all learn things as we go along in business. You know, what's been one of the things that has been a surprise to you? You know, we start a business and we say, okay, it's going to go like this. You know, it's going to go A, B, C, X, Y, Z. You know, what thing has popped up that you say, whoa, didn't expect that? You know, what's been a big surprise?
Yeah, so I'll give you some unpleasant surprises and a pleasant surprise. So
okay.
Unpleasant surprises are things like issues within the industry or the code base that we just have to deal with, right? One thing that I've really had to go and learn is how to manage people. At OIF, I was an individual contributor. I did my job. I worked for somebody above me. I wasn't managing anybody. I like to think I have pretty strong emotional intelligence and social skills, but it's a whole other level when you're leading a team into the battle, right? So that's been an adaptation for me. Is it's easier when you've got one or two people that you're leading, but when you grow to 12 to 30, that's a completely different ballgame, completely different company. It takes different skill sets. So kind of adapting and adopting those skills as time goes on has been a challenge for me. One thing that's been a pleasant surprise that from the business standpoint that we didn't necessarily plan is a feature set that we call Arena. So Arena is essentially a white label tournament service that you can implement as a brand into a big streaming event. A great example for this is Warzone Wednesday. We did it with Keemstar. He had Ninja, Dr. Disrespect. I mean, you name it. The biggest names were playing in this thing. In a week, Keem came to us and said, hey, I want to build this thing. Again, essentially a white label tournament platform. Can you build it? We're like, it's not really in our bread and butter, but we can see the value adds. Sure, we'll take a leap of faith. So we build this tournament platform literally in a week, launched it the next week, and immediately we saw tens of thousands of people using it, signing up, and it was a huge success for us. And it's been a big key driver. But that is a pleasant surprise that we had no anticipation of ever doing. We built it, it worked out. I can give you 10 other things that we built and they didn't work out, but it's things like that, those small risks that ultimately help drive the growth. And there are good and bad pleasant surprises.
Again, we're talking with Matthew Benson of eFuse, and you, of course, are listening to and watching Play to Win. I'm your host, Charles Gentry, aka The Oracle, and we're finding out some great things here about entrepreneurship and the fantastic company that Matthew and his cohorts have built. Matthew, when it comes to things have changed so much over the years. You know, it used to be all about competition, you know, Coca-Cola versus Pepsi, you know. Now there's more collaboration. You know, you see companies working with each other. You know, kind of what's your philosophy along that line? You know, is it still the old school stuff of, hey, we got to beat everybody? Or is there a new kind of dynamics in business now where companies do work together for a common good?
Yeah, I think it's a combination of both, right? I grew up playing traditional sports, and I'll tell you, I like to win, right? But at the end of the day, I think that the mindset shift we have to make is really at the end of the day, we're competing with ourselves. How do we become the best version of ourselves as individuals, but with the company too? But how we've approached it with eFuse is we believe in rising tides raise all ships. We want to work with a lot of different people and build an ecosystem that is something to be admired. We want esports and gaming to be the biggest industry. We want it to be great businesses all the way around. And we believe eFuse has the power to help connect and bring those ships together. So we would absolutely say, hey, rising tides raise all ships. Let's work together. We're stronger together. We can do more together. And through that, we can really be for the gamers.
How about these famous people you're talking about? How have they taken to the platform?
Yeah, it's been really positive. So we've got a number of individuals that really embraced who we are, what we do. We have individuals like Seth Curry, Denzel Ward, Zeke Elliott that play in our tournaments that are these these traditional sports athletes that are coming into gaming and have really get involved with us. furthermore than that, some of them have even become investors. They believe in the platform so much, which is pretty cool. But outside of that, within the gaming community specifically, we've got a wide range of streamers that have played in our tournaments, ranging from the Nick Mercs, the Docs, the Ninjas of the world. But the people that really kind of seem to latch on to us are the individuals like a Tyler TP, a Doug Roll, that or I would say like a tier below the Ninjas of the world, right? But they get a lot of value out of the platform because they're still building their journey. They're still engaging with the aspiring gamer that's maybe a step or two below them. And it's that mentor-mentee relationship, along with the opportunities that the platform provides, that has led to that adoption within the community. And at the end of the day, like, we're not here without the community, right? And we realize that we've got to be community first. And it's their acceptance of us and saying, hey, we believe in you, that has really given us the opportunity to grow like we have.
Talking about the growth, esports is growing, your company is growing within that. People who want to come to a platform and use it, whether it be, LinkedIn, whether it be Facebook, whether it be eFuse, how do you fit into all of the social media platforms? Is it just those who say, well, I have an interest in esports only, or is it people who can come in who may not even have a background or know much about esports and come in and say, wow, here's something here for me, I like this, or who is really your audience?
Yeah, it's a great question. And the short of it is we have multiple different demographics we serve, but at the highest level, we're serving the aspiring gamer. So these are the individuals that are coming out of high school, coming out of college, that want to be involved in the industry. That's sort of our core demographic. Outside of that, though, we firmly believe that anybody that has an interest in gaming can come to our platform and get value, whether you're the individual that just read the headline around Booga winning the $3 million. You're like, wow, I didn't know gaming was a thing. Come to check out eFuse. That's a place for you to learn. At the flip into the spectrum, if you're super embedded in the industry, we have the tools. We've got the recruiting mechanisms for you to access opportunity, but then also publish opportunities that enable you to recruit talent to fill those too. So it is a wide gamut, but at the very core, we're focused on the other 98%, the individuals that want to be something in the industry, whether it's a business professional, a player, or just a fan. We want to help those individuals find their path and access their opportunity.
There's still some of those out there who are a little slow on the uptake, that think that esports is still just a fad that's, come around and it's going to fizzle out and go away, and there are those who think this is the next big thing, that it's going to be what maybe traditional sports is right now. It's going to have that kind of growth. Where are you on that scale? What do you think?
I firmly agree with the latter, that this is going to be, it's already massive. And I think if you don't realize that it's already massive, you're already behind. The reality is it's still growing at a tremendous pace. I think that the biggest difficulty that non-endemic individuals, brands, organizations, you name it, will have coming in is it's so rapidly changing. Literally every year there's a new game. And in a lot of ways, people will view that there's a new sport, right? It's not like football doesn't really change. You may have a few rules that change along the way, but every year in gaming, we've got a new sport that comes out. So building infrastructure around that, building the ideology and creating the societal norms in a lot of ways around gaming is going to be increasingly difficult. But what I will say is gamers are everywhere. There's all different levels of them, right? But they love it, they're passionate about it, and they're going to stay involved. And if you don't recognize that, you're just being ignorant to the situation. I firmly believe the industry is going to be, it is massive. It's going to continue to grow. The issue that we have to address as an industry, but then non-endemics have to look at is, how can we make this sustainable? How can we make this infrastructure play to where it really solidifies who we are and what this makes up?
Predominantly male, okay? Do you really need to get women involved in esports to really have it, grow even more? Or, is it fine, being the way that it is and not having as much maybe diversity?
Yeah, I think what's nice about esports and gaming right now is since it's so new, there's still a lot of molding that can occur, right? I do believe like diversity, inclusion, um, having females, having minorities, individuals of color coming and being involved in the industry is extremely important. And to just have it be the white male is completely unacceptable, right? So the way we think about it is we want to provide opportunities right now for all different types of people. A great example of this is, and it's actually happening this Thursday. So a selfish plug here, or shameless plug here, but is our Women of the Arena tournament. So this is an all-female Fortnite tournament. It's the first of its kind, where there will be a $20,000 prize pool on the table. And what's unique about this is it's saying to the industry, females gamers are just as talented, just as prominent, and just as worthy of these opportunities as males are, right? So we want to invest today to make sure that that's a reality. So in 20 years time, we're not coming back and having to reverse the cycle. We're saying today, as this industry is growing, this is a priority to us. This is who we are. So we don't have to go back and retroactively try to fix that. So absolutely, we should be trying to make opportunities that apply to broader demographics. And what's unique about gaming is that it breaks down barriers in a lot of ways. And it is a tremendous opportunity for us to sort of right the scale, in my opinion.
Tentacles going out in every direction. You know, you have the League of Legends, you know, people, you have the Call of Duty people, you have the Fortnite people, you know, you have the sports games, you know. So with such a wide-ranging and diverse field of people in different areas, you know, how do you kind of capture that? Is it necessary for you to kind of be everywhere and all of those? Do you kind of focus down the middle? You know, how do you pull all this together?
Yeah, it's a great question. And I think it's a balance, right? You don't want to try to boil the ocean day one, because if you do that, you don't get anywhere. But for us, it's been, again, about stacking those small wins. So we started with the games that were most popular, right? So the Call of Duties of the world, the Fortnites of the world, the Rocket Leagues of the world. And now it's about branching out from there. So League of Legends is massive too. So I probably should have included them in that first little bunch. But further than that, the Fallout guys or Fall Guys that just came out, right? Different games like a Valorant that are coming in, Overwatch, etc. Expanding to new titles is absolutely paramount for our business to continue to grow. But it's also making sure that we do it. We choose quality over quantity and do it the right way the first time. So yes, it is hard because there is a wide breadth of people, not only the demographics of them, but even where they're located. That's really hard to manage. But it's important, and we've got to do it. It's just a matter of putting first things first and sort of stacking those wins to make sure we do it the right way.
Are you really looking domestically, you know, to grow here in the States first, and then once you get that solid, you know, then you look elsewhere? Or are you already thinking globally and saying, hey, there's a esports audience around the world, and we need to have a game plan for outside of the United States too? Kind of where you're at right now.
Yeah, so from a business standpoint, we decided day one that we weren't going to restrict access to individuals across the world. So we actually have, I think it's over 80 countries represented on eFuse already after 8 months, which is tremendous, right? We've got hundreds of thousands of users, 80 countries represented, all kinds of languages, backgrounds, right? So that part of it's really, really cool. The trouble is when you think about what we're building, it's a marketplace, right? So you've got talent. So we've got a lot of talent all over the world, but how do you match them with opportunities that fit their needs? In many ways, those opportunities have to be physically or remotely close to what they need, right? So we've really prioritized getting domestic right first. So North American opportunities is our number one priority. However, we realize the broader global audience is much bigger than just being here. And it's going to require us investing time, investing resources in building those opportunities up elsewhere and helping aggregate those on eFuse. But again, going back to the initial point of we've got to do first things first here and then expand outwardly. That's very much so how we think about it. But there's no question that people want to access opportunities across the world.
Let me help out the young gamers out there. You know, I would have to say that it's a tremendous success what you've done. You know, many businesses take off and it takes them quite a while to get to the scale that you're at, you know. But that kid who says, hey, I want to do something with gaming one day, and they're in the room, and, you know, they got the controller in their hands and they're playing, and the parent comes in and yells, hey, come on, put that down and, you know, do something real. You know, that's not going to get you anywhere in life. You know, where were you at? You know, were your parents saying those things to you? Like, you know, what are you doing with those video games? You know, do your homework.
No, you're spot on. I love my parents, but that was definitely their mindset, right? What's been nice about this is now I got some ammo to go back and say, hey, Mom, I could have got a scholarship. Like, that's on you. I wasn't any good enough, but you get what I'm saying, right? So I think part of what we're hoping to do is provide the resources for that conversation. At the end of the day, we're going to educate parents too. I think what'll be nice is as years go on, I think my age demographic, we're going to be able to, we grew up gamers, so we're going to be able to say, hey, we know this is a reality. But for individuals like my parents, we've got to go back and we've got to do some education around that. And what we're hoping to do is provide the ammo, the knowledge and the resources to read about it, but then the actual opportunities to say, hey, Mom, Ohio State's got a full ride scholarship for the game I'm playing 12 hours a day. Like, I can continue to play this. This is no different than me. I'm not getting a basketball scholarship, so I can get a scholarship here. So I think that's how we think about it, but it's going to require education. It's going to require consistent effort. And if you are that gamer, I would encourage you can utilize eFuse, you can utilize other sources, right? To gather that information up, have the conversation, give them the facts. I mean, the facts are the facts. And then from there, when you're working on your craft, it's all about just putting in the time, putting in the effort, building up your network, and doing outbound, talk to college coaches, talk to individuals you aspire to be in the industry. I think you'll be shocked. There's gonna be a lot of people that say no, like that's just the reality of it. Some people won't answer your DM or answer your cold email, but there'll be a few that do. A great example, Sundance DiGiovanni. I cold emailed him and said, hey, Sonny, I'm building this thing. I have a lot of respect for what you've done. I'd love to just get on the phone and pick your brain on what I'm trying to accomplish in the industry and learn from what you did. And I did that to, let's call it 50 people, right? Sundance was the one that answered my email. And now, like, I've learned so much from Sonny. He's made a bunch of different intros, but it's about the effort. It's about building relationships, and it's about doing things the right way. And if you do those things, you'll be fine. You're going to figure it out, and you're going to get anywhere you want to go in life.
Sponsors, you know, the businesses out there that you tap into, you know, to, you know, without sponsorship, without those people putting money into a project, you know, you don't have much to work with. So how do you approach sponsors and, you know, get them to understand what you're doing there and the value of it?
Yeah, early on it was hard, right? Because we didn't have the data to show them. It was like, hey, I think this will pay off. Just believe in us. Now what we have is we have data to say, we have data to say, hey, this is what this past event did. We believe we can replicate this for you. And by the way, this is better than you're getting anywhere else. Like the CPM value we're giving you, the demographic in which you're tapping into, there's no better play than what we're providing you right here. And we're going to handhold you in this process so you can begin to understand this landscape. So you're not a one-off transactional person. You really begin to build a relationship in this industry. And that's important to us. So for the industry to grow and be successful at the highest level, I firmly believe that it's going to require us bringing in and hand-holding non-endemic organizations and brands and helping them understand. Because if we don't do our job to educate, they're not going to put their dollars in here. They're not going to believe in the industry. And it's ultimately those dollars that are going to fuel our growth. And there's finite resources that already exist within the endemics, and everybody's trying to get a hold of them, right? Everybody wants to get dollars from you name it, right? But if we can bring in somebody like a Starbucks, a Bumble, or whomever that is sort of a massive company that can get a lot of value out of gaming, we want to do that for them and handhold them through the process so they can understand it.
We are talking with Matthew Benson of eFuse and just getting some great information. Matthew, it's been a fantastic interview, as I knew it would. As I say, I've been looking forward to it for a while, you know. Give our audience some contacts, you know, they want to find out about eFuse, you know, where can they go to find out that? Where can they go to contact you and get information? Go ahead and give them the info.
Yeah, absolutely. So eFuse.gg, if you want to check out the site, you can also download it on your phone, iOS and Android. Really excited about the mobile app. We've done some refreshes here recently, so be sure to check that out. It's the best way to stay in the loop with the network, right? For me personally, you can find me on eFuse at MJB. And then if you want to shoot me an email or talk to me, feel free to email me at mjb@efuse.io.
Thanks for all the great information and all the stuff that you're doing out there. And you hit it out the park, man, I got to say.
I appreciate it. Well, this has been great. I really appreciate you reaching out and can't wait to maybe come back one day, or we'll have you on for an eFuse podcast. That'd be great.
Definitely so. Definitely so. We'll have you back.
Awesome.
Okay. All right.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, Matthew. Have a great one.
You too.
All right. Again, Matthew Benson of eFuse. And now we're going to the man himself, DJ Yams.
Yams G The DJ.
Twerk it, baby.
Round one. Fight.
Ooh, okay. Woo! Woo! Yeah. Okay.
Fight.
Ah, nah. I blocked that. Okay. Oh, shit. Oh, yeah.
Round three. Fight.
What? Okay. Woo! Got him.
Round 4. Fight.
A little too early. Woo! That's what's up. That's what's up.
All right, coming back from Mr. DJ Yams, BT Tech Tiger, our resident gamer, and all of the crew, we have as our second guest today, Mr. Johnathan Jordan, an attorney at Kane Russell Coleman Logan. And we're going to be talking about esports and some of the legal aspects of it. Johnathan, how are you doing?
I'm good. How are you?
Doing just fine, just fine. Hey, we want to get into some of those things that sometimes people don't think of, you know, when they're jumping off to start businesses and they're, you know, striking out to make their dream a reality. You know, sometimes they leave off the legal stuff, and that's some of the most important stuff there is.
Yep. And I mean, especially with it being such a startup heavy industry, I've already run into companies who have not done things correctly the first go around, and they're running into problems later. So it's definitely important to have the legal all set up and together, like you mentioned.
There you go. Okay. Well, you know, let's start with some of the basics. You know, people set up businesses, and the first thing that's thrown at them, you know, what are you? Are you a sole proprietor? Are you a partnership? Are you a corporation? You know, is it an S corp? Is it an L corp? You know, just kind of briefly give us what each one of these things are.
Yeah, so sole proprietorship is just, it's a company owned by one person. It's not a separate legal entity. So the owner is liable for everything that the sole proprietorship does, all of its debts and liabilities. Don't have to file anything with the Secretary of State to form it. It's a pretty informal business. So partnership, again, well, there are several types of partnerships. If we're just talking about a general partnership where two or more people come together as each general partners, then you also don't have to file anything with the Secretary of State to form that entity. It's also still informal, and the partners are responsible also for the liabilities, debts and liabilities of the partnership. There's another type of partnership called a limited partnership that has a general partner who runs the day-to-day operations of the partnership, and then limited partners who are usually just the investors. And for limited partnership, you do file with the Secretary of State to form that entity, and the limited partners are shielded from liability of the partnership, but the general partner, again, remains liable for, personally liable for the debts of the partnership. And then corporation is just a company, again, you file with the Secretary of State to form it. And it's just a group of shareholders who own certain amounts of different amounts of stock in the company. And the corporation is a separate legal entity from the shareholders. So none of the shareholders are liable for any debts or liabilities of the corporation. It's liable for its own. And then another common company that you, entity type that you did not mention is a limited liability company, which really provides the most protection. And the owners of, we'll say, shares in the company are called members. And that's a separate legal entity from the members, and they are also shielded from liability. So there's several options as far as what business entity you want to form, the requirements for each, the amount of protections that come with each different type of entity. And typically, we recommend forming a corporation or a limited liability company just for those liability protections.
Okay, all right. And definitely everyone needs to give it some thought before they jump into something and get started. You know, what have you found lately? You know, we're all going through lockdown and, you know, a bunch of unusual things that have kind of, you know, curtailed maybe what might be the normal thing. But have you seen a lot of, you know, people coming in, forming new businesses? I mean, is there a lot of new business happening out there, or is everybody sort of, you know, buckling down the hatches and sort of keeping things as is?
Well, especially in the esports and gaming industries, I haven't seen too much slowdown, which, I mean, esports has proven during this time. I guess it's a silver lining to what we're going through with COVID, but the esports industry has really been able to show how well it can weather this type of economic or social disturbance better than traditional sports or other industries. So I'm still seeing plenty of investments coming into the industry, new businesses forming. I'm advising companies who are just starting out. I'm connecting businesses with investors still throughout this entire process. There hasn't, at least from my perspective, I haven't seen too much of a slowdown in the esports industry. Now, the same probably can't be said in other industries, but again, that's a testament to how well this industry has been doing during this time, relatively speaking.
Right. Well, you know, esports being the area that we're talking about, you can't separate esports from gaming, you know, those who are just gamers. Then you have the competitive gamers. Then you have all these industries, cottage industries growing up around it that do various forms of streaming and, you know, and other things. So when you're talking about forming a business, do we just throw all of that into a pot as esports, or would your advice as an attorney be to look at it separately depending on which segment you're in, and that's how you would approach it legally? Is it all just one big pot, or are there specific things to think about for each segment?
And I want to say this, none of what I'm saying is intended to be legal advice. I'm just
exactly
my insights into these issues. But I think, at least from a business perspective, there is a difference between esports industry and the gaming industry. Gaming industry is much broader than the esports industry. So it really depends on what your target audience is. I mean, esports is clearly a great avenue for marketing. I mean, that's what all the media is on right now. So getting involved in the esports industry is great for building up your brand awareness. But it really depends on what your target audience is, because they are two very, they're two different animals, we'll say. There certainly is overlap, but they're different.
Right. Well, when it comes to putting together businesses, again, you know, there are a number of things that people need to be focused on in terms of the legal side of it. What are some of the basic things that people need to do when they're setting up a business, whether it be esports business or any other kind of business? What are some of the basics?
I mean, the major thing is you want to make sure you have, when you form your business, you want to have all the documents in place that provide clear guidance, terms, instructions on how the business is going to be run. So I mentioned at the start how I've come across businesses in the esports space who didn't really have the legal help that they should have had when they were first starting. and now they're facing problems because of it. And I've seen, so for example, if you form a limited liability company, you're going to have a company agreement that you need to have drafted that will outline all the obligations of the members, the voting rights of the members, what it takes to get a member out of the company. So, and some of the agreements that I've seen that haven't had attorneys drafting them don't have those. So the companies that I'm talking with now, they have some members or partners or whatever in their company who they want, who aren't pulling their weight, and who they want to get out of the company for whatever reason, and they don't have the mechanism to do so. So that's probably the main thing, is you really want to make sure that you have your company agreements buttoned up, so everything is clearly defined. And that kind of goes to the importance of just having written contracts in general. I mean, you want to have as much specificity as you can, as much laid out in writing as you can.
Okay, all right. Johnathan, are the days of the handshake deal gone?
Well, it's better to have a contract than a handshake, I'll tell you that. They're certainly not gone, and I think more so in this industry, especially when it was first starting out, more deals were done by handshake than anything else. But when in doubt, have a contract. Contract should be the number one thing that you have in a business deal.
Okay, all right. You know, we have people who are actually making a living from esports or the esports industry. As we mentioned, people who do live streaming, you know, people who do other facets of esports online. Even though they are individuals, should these individuals really look at themselves, if they're trying to monetize what they're doing, should they really look at themselves as a business entity rather than an individual?
From a legal perspective, no, but from a practical perspective, absolutely. I mean, if we're talking about like players or streamers, it's all about building up your personal brand. That's how you're going to have success in the industry. So treating yourself as separate from the team, focusing on your personal brand, your followers, that is absolutely important to have success in this industry.
And getting, you know, bringing things together. You spoke about matching up investors with companies, people who are building companies. What are some of the things that those companies or individuals who are seeking investment or investors also need to be thinking about? Is there kind of sort of a grocery list of things you need to get taken care of, or dots connected, in order to go after investors, or before you're ready to go after investments?
Yeah, and to kind of tie it back to what we were just talking about, one of the things that companies need to have when they're looking for investors is having those company documents, company agreements in place that provide clear mechanisms for onboarding investors. But apart from that, just for new companies in the space who are trying to find the investors, especially if it's someone who's just getting into the industry, I mean, it is unbelievably important to have a good group of advisors behind your company who are experts in their own right in the industry, who have experience in it. So the companies that I'm trying to connect with investors now, they all have advisory boards behind them. I'm on a couple of them. They have legal advisors. They have just people who have been in the space for 10 plus years who carry respect with their name. And it's important that those advisors are also involved. They're not just passive. They're not just there to have their name on a piece of paper. They are actually providing guidance. I mean, that's what investors want to see. And I mean, apart from revenue and potential and the usual stuff, I think that is one of the key things that new companies in the space need to have, especially if it's a non-endemic company or someone who doesn't have experience in the space.
Okay. So you mean me as an 18-year-old gamer who happens to have 500,000 followers now is not going to just walk into a bank and have him hand over the bag? That's not the way it works.
Well, we're talking about just players. I mean, I think that I don't really know when players would be looking for investors, so I'm not really sure I'm following what you're asking right now.
Yeah, if someone is if they're a streamer, and of course, when we talk esports, we're talking generally a lot of young people, who are out there, who may not have the experience and may not have the know-how of, what reality is and what's really happening out there. So just because you have 500,000 followers doesn't mean that you're, an investable entity that, somebody's going to walk up and just hand you, a sack full of money, right?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's, like I said, it's important, especially if you're young. If you're a young business owner, it's important to have experience with your company, because I think investors will be a little more hesitant to invest in just a 18-year-old's company. So yeah, you certainly want to have that experience around you. And I mean, if we're talking about a streamer who has over 1 million followers and he's going to go start his own gaming org or content creation org, then it might be a different story. Just because he already has that following, investors might be willing to invest in what he's doing more. But just for the average company, just trying to start in the space, I think it is absolutely important to have the experience, the advisors on board to help you.
Okay. We have all heard the horror stories, some of them or many of them, in the music industry, where someone's just starting off and they sign a contract, and down the line the money starts coming in, and all of a sudden they find out that they're not getting the money they thought they were going to get, and they find themselves in a bad contract that you're signed forever and a day, and now we got problems. What can one do to really avoid those kinds of nightmares?
Yeah, so, and I've helped players negotiate their contracts in the esports space, and I mean, I'm sure you're aware and the viewers are aware. I mean, esports has been referred to as the Wild West, just in terms of contracts. I mean, nothing was really established, and players were just signing contracts without reading them, just to get on the team and get paid for playing. And now that we're 5-6 years in the industry as we know it, or in its current state, I think it is absolutely important for players to have legal representation, have a lawyer review the contract. And sometimes it's not as easy as just getting an agent, because a lot of the agents out there don't have a legal background. And I have an org client and I've helped players negotiate. So I've done both sides. And for my org client, I helped negotiate against an agent here in the DFW area, no legal background, didn't know what he was doing. So that's why it's extremely important to get a lawyer to help you if possible. And I know we're expensive, lawyers are expensive, but it really pays in the long run, because there are really bad contracts out there. And even the quote standard contract that's out there now is still very org friendly. And there are plenty of unfavorable terms in those contracts that the players don't know that they can negotiate against. usually the players are just looking for how much am I getting paid, how long is the contract, maybe cuts in tournament winning, sponsorship revenues, and that's it, just the numbers. And these contracts can be 30, 40 pages long. And even if it's a standard contract, it's still negotiable. And that's something that I think a lot of players don't understand. They're just eager to sign it, start playing. And especially with the average career of a esports player being so short, if these contracts are for 2 or 3 years, which most of them are usually for 1 year, 2 years max, but even so, that's still a decent chunk of their career. So it's absolutely critical to get that legal representation, have a lawyer review the contract, and negotiate against it if possible.
Okay. So trying to save money could cost you a whole lot more in the end.
Yep.
Okay.
Especially if you're locked in a bad contract. It is not a good thing. You're in a bad situation down the road.
Okay. We're talking to Johnathan Jordan, attorney with Kane Russell Coleman Logan, and we're talking about some of the legal aspects of esports and the esports and gaming industry. There are some things that are fundamental, of course, to law, but are there any things that are specific to esports when it comes to law or to contracts? Is it in any way a different kind of animal from maybe some other things that you may get contracts for?
Honestly, not so much. I mean, the industry touches on so many different areas of the law that my whole goal of starting this legal practice, I'm trying to become an expert in the industry, to set myself out apart from other lawyers, just because it's that expertise in the industry that's important. Any lawyer, you'll be able to find a lawyer who can generally do whatever you need to do within the industry, whether that's drafting sponsorship agreements, licensing agreements, negotiating contracts, doing player visas, filing a trademark. I mean, pretty much anything you think of. I mean, there are lawyers out there who do those general areas of the law, but it is important to have a lawyer who understands the industry, especially when you're getting into issues like player visas, even business transactions with companies merging or acquiring each other. It's really important to have someone who understands the nuances of the industry. But as far as specific areas of the law that are unique to esports, not so much. It's just different applications of law that's already out there. Entertainment law is really the big overlapper in the esports industry. So with, like I said, licensing agreements, stuff like that.
Okay. Well, esports kind of like maybe gymnastics and swimming. You may run across people who are turning professional that aren't even of the age to sign a contract yet. They still have to have mom or dad put that name on there for them. So in an industry that has so many people who are underage already turning professional, how do you as an attorney, see this? Is it something that would be a caution to you as an attorney or, with your agency? Or is it just, hey, a professional player is a professional player no matter what age?
I mean, I think that's just something that the industry is going to be dealing with for as long as it exists, that a lot of these players are underage, and you're going to be dealing with their parents because these kids can't sign contracts. Their parents have to sign them. So that's just something that will always be around in this industry. And it is a little more difficult, I think, especially when you're negotiating. And I've come across contracts where the parent has had to sign for the kid. Sometimes these parents they don't fully understand what's going on, at least as much as their kid does, who's doing this for 10 hours a day, and sees the potential in it. So you're just adding for lack of a better word, a middleman. I mean, you're adding a third party into the mix. So it's just another element that companies need to be aware of, teams need to be aware of.
Okay. Have you kind of run into the wild card yet already of the parent who, you know, may have unreal expectations for their kid?
I have not. Luckily, I have not, because that makes things way more difficult. But yeah, I have not had to deal with that yet.
Okay, all right. And you know, doing esports, somebody, as you have pointed out, may be practicing, you know, 8 hours a day, 10 hours a day. When you are representing someone who may be, you know, a professional player or turning professional player, is that something that would be really written into the contract as well? You know, stipulations on maybe how much time they can be made to practice, or, you know, how many hours they have to do this? Are those some of the things that you would also write into a contract?
As far as time practicing, not really. There are requirements that are written in the contract, such as number of hours you're required to stream. But as far as practice hours, usually it's phrased as they're expected to do what's expected of a professional player in the industry. So it's usually kept pretty general. But the issue is, and this I've actually written an article about this that was published in a legal publication in Texas. You can't, a lot of these contracts, a lot of these teams are trying to classify the players as independent contractors. And that's a hot topic issue in the industry, whether players are independent contractors or employees. Usually independent contractors are cheaper, so orgs favor that classification because they don't have to withhold Social Security, income, the taxes, and all that stuff. But the more and it's not so easy as just saying in the contract that the player is an independent contractor. What determines whether they're an independent contractor or an employee is the amount of control the team exercises over the player. So the more specificity there is in the contract, for example, the required number of hours they're supposed to play, what equipment is being provided for the players, the more that the contract shows how much control the team has over what the player is doing, the more likely it is that the player is actually an independent contractor. So that's why you don't see a whole lot of specificity in the contract as far as required practices, stuff like that.
How about you know, you're talking visas and people having to leave who are maybe underage and, you know, head to another country. How do you handle that legally?
Sorry, you were on mute when you first started asking that, so I didn't catch the first part of that.
Yeah. How do you handle underage players leaving the country to go travel? How do you handle that legally? What legal things need to be talked about?
I mean, obviously the players' parents are going to be involved. But visas, it's, especially with the current administration, it's difficult to get their visas. There are specific visas. P1 visas is the most common that you see traditional sports players, athletes use. But in order to obtain those visas, you need to, for an international player, at least coming into the United States, you need to show international recognition for what you're doing, which can be a pretty hard thing to show. I mean, you have to show publications showing what you're doing. And it can be tough for just the average professional player to get that visa. It's easier for the more well-known players to get that. So that's it. I think it's a little easier to get the visas since since maybe 5 years ago when the industry really started booming. because 5 years ago, these players were not really recognized as athletes. And that's a requirement for the P1 visa. But I think there's more recognition that these professional esports players are athletes. So there's at least some improvement on that end, but it's still pretty difficult to get those visas, at least for international players coming into the U.S.
You're negotiating contracts, again, for some underage players. Of course, you know, things have to be thought about, like education, you know. If it's a player who is still, you know, kind of underage, dependent upon parents, you know, or what sort of things do you negotiate into those kinds of contracts, you know, to protect the player?
And like I said, I haven't actually negotiated for an underage player. So I haven't done that yet, but I know of orgs that are providing, for lack of a better word, education. So financial, teaching them financial responsibility is one. But I think it is important for those players, if that's something they are concerned about. I mean, you can negotiate anything into a contract. You just have to ask. I mean, the other side might say no, and then you'll fight over it, or you'll just give up on it. But I think it is something, especially with the underage players, the 16-year-olds, 17-year-olds, to consider putting something into the contract like that, just because they're not going to be doing this forever. Like I mentioned earlier, the average career for professional esports players is not very long. I mean, certainly under 10 years. So having those not protections, but those things in place that can help prepare you for afterwards will be extremely beneficial.
What, you know, in talking about having legal representation, and if you're a company, especially, you know, a startup just getting off the ground, you know, what kind of things can you do to really get yourself or provide yourself with some legal help, not just, you know, in the beginning in setting up contracts, but to have someone and legal help all along the line, from setup through, you know, your growth and scaling up. You know, how can you set yourself up to have legal representation, you know, before you really have revenue coming in?
Yeah, and I mean, that is a big issue for startups. And even with law firms that are cheaper than other law firms. So since we're a regional Texas firm, our rates are generally lower than a lot of the other law firms in the esports space, the larger international firms. And even so, there are a lot of startups who have approached me and they still can't afford us. So there are other ways that companies can go about doing it. So I mentioned that I'm an advisor for a couple companies. So that could mean adding an attorney onto your advisory board in exchange for some equity in the company, and just having them commit to providing 10 hours a month of legal advice, 20 hours a month, depending on the revenue or the equity that you're giving up. So there's certainly ways to do it. And it, like I said earlier, I mean, it's very important to have all the legal stuff tied up when you're just starting out, because investors will be looking to make sure you have everything in line legally. So there are ways to get legal help. I've done stuff for free just for some of my friends in the space. And there will always be lawyers who are willing to do stuff pro bono to help you out. So there are different avenues for doing it.
Growing and scaling a business, you know, 3 years down the line from where you started, when you signed, you know, those legal agreements, 4 or 5 years down the line, now all of a sudden you have revenue. Now all of a sudden you started off with, you know, 5 friends in a garage, and now you're a company of, you know, 350, you know. Do people need to, in that case, revisit the legal documents that they put together in starting a business? You know, should those things ride forever, or at some point, do they need to take another look at the agreements that have been signed and maybe the legal structure that they put their business together with?
You know, they absolutely should be revisited as a company grows. So a company could start out as a partnership or a limited liability company, and down the road, it might make sense for them to convert to a corporation. So I think those are certainly things that need to be revisited. And again, it's important to have the mechanisms in place in the first agreement to be able to do that. And it gets harder as you add more and more owners of the company, depending on what the voting rights are, to be able to approve changing your business entity or making any amendments to the company agreement. So that again, that's why it's so important to make sure all that stuff is lined out clearly in the first agreement. It all comes back to that.
We are talking with Johnathan Jordan of Kane, Russell, Coleman, Logan. You, of course, are listening to and viewing Play to Win. I'm your host, Charles Gentry, aka The Oracle, and we're getting some fantastic information from Jordan, Mr. Jordan, on things that you may want to do in starting that esports business, or even as a esports player. You know, finally, Mr. Jordan, let's talk about those people who may be in contracts, may have signed a contract in esports, and now they want to branch off and do other things. They want to get into merchandising. They want to get into licensing agreements, you know, with other people. But you're signed to a contract maybe with a team or an organization. Is it possible for you as an individual to still do things if you're signed to a team or organization agreement?
It depends. That's a common answer from lawyers, but it really depends on the contract. A lot of contracts have non-compete agreements in them. A lot of the player contracts have clauses in there where the player agrees not to take on sponsors that are competing with the team's sponsors. So it really just depends. It's probably not the answer you're looking for, but it kind of goes to show how important it is to understand the contract that you're signing, because if there is a possibility of you doing that down the road, there might be some limitations in that contract that prevent you from doing that. And you might be tied into that contract for a while without any avenues for getting out of it.
So might this be something that players need to look at when they're signing that first agreement?
Absolutely. And I mean, there are clauses even in contracts where, to kind of go off on a tangent a little bit, there are contracts in some of these player contracts, or there are clauses in some of these player contracts that say that the team will be the player's exclusive representative for any sponsorship deals for the player, which doesn't make sense to me. And I always negotiate that out of the contract, but that's a clause that the average player might not think twice about when they're signing the contract. And it's extremely important, especially when the player is trying to build up their own personal brand, to be able to decide what sponsors they personally bring on for themselves. And again, there might be limitations in the contract that those sponsors can't be competitors of the team's sponsors, but it all comes back to how important it is to review that contract, understand it, know what you're signing.
All right, and finally, let me throw this one at you. What makes a good esports attorney?
Gosh, I mean, really, esports attorneys have really been around for 5 or 6 years. And there still aren't a whole lot of us out there, But I think the key is really understanding the industry, understanding the relationships between the leagues, the teams, the players, sponsors, leagues, all the different relationships within the esports ecosystem. That's extremely important because, as I mentioned, the industry touches on so many different areas of the law that, I mean, any lawyer could probably do. And there are a lot of law firms, I think, who are getting into the space who don't necessarily or might not understand the industry. If they're older attorneys, they maybe haven't played the games. They're not as connected with the industry as a younger attorney who grew up playing these games and understands the importance of what the industry is doing. So I think that's the key thing. Like I said, you can probably find any attorney at any law firm who can help you with whatever you need help with, but really having someone who understands the industry, I think, is really how we set ourselves apart.
Okay, fantastic. Well, we thank you for being on, Johnathan. Appreciate all the great, advice that you've given, because let's face it, LegalZoom may not be the answer.
Yep. Preaching to the choir there.
All right. Well, hey, I appreciate you being on. And, as we move forward, we'll have you back again and, get some more wonderful advice from you on these things. So, again, appreciate it greatly, and have a great one.
Yeah, thanks. Thanks for having me.
All right. Fantastic. Hey, we're going back to Mr. DJ Yams to take us out of here. DJ.
Traffic has never been this hot. Sit back and trip. This is the Traffic Jams with Yams.
This is power.
Yams G The DJ. Power. Yams G The DJ.